Got my favorite mug. Got my favorite book. Let's do this thing. Okay, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the book, The Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Women by Kate Moore. So this book is about, in the early 1900s, the discovery of radium. Radium is like huge, and they start using radium for a lot of stuff, like everything. They think it's like this miracle drug, whatever. But they also start using it for watch faces. So they use these this radium paint to paint their watch faces to make them glow in the dark, and they're used a lot during World War I and World War II. Oh, not World War II, sorry, mainly World War I. And they need these people to start painting these face watches. So they call in all these women for these jobs that are paid very well, and these women, to do the job, do this thing that they call dip lip paint or dip lip point. And it's where they're using a paintbrush, and they dip it in the radium paint and then take it to their lips and then paint. And they do this over and over and over again all day. Not only that are they literally just consuming the radium, but there's no health codes whatsoever at any of these factories or any of these places. So these women are having their lunch on their workbenches where there's radium particles just floating in the air. Some of these women describe saying, like, yeah, they could see the particles because they glow. They didn't wash their hands, so they would be eating their sandwiches and they would have radium all over it. There wasn't any like shower procedures, there wasn't any aprons, there wasn't any goggles, there wasn't any gloves. These women were just exposed to radium 100%. I think the most creepy part or eerie part was how after these women got off work, they would walk around the town, and at night they would literally glow. And so they would say that, you know, when you lived in the town, you knew which girls worked at the radium company because they would literally glow. And it was like, I knew what was coming, so it was like hard to read that, but like these girls were living it up. They had the life. So obviously this great glamorous life didn't last long because radium is scary. These women started experiencing pain in the jaw, pain in the legs, pain in their bones. They are undergoing radium poisoning. A lot of women start to die, and these women think it's like they go to all these doctors and no one knows what's happening to them. They don't know. There's a lot of suspicion that it might be related to their work, their occupation, but this hasn't ever happened before. And radium is this new element, so they have no idea. They just keep dying, and these doctors just keep guessing. I think the most freaky part, so just disclaimer, this is kind of a little gory, so if you get uncomfortable, fast forward now. I think it was just so crazy how these women would get pains in their jaws and in their teeth, and then their teeth would just start to fall out. And then, or the dentist would just take their teeth out for them, but it would just make it worse. And then they would have like pus coming out, and then like literally pieces of their jawbone would just fall out, like just come apart. And they finally figured it out that radium essentially has the opposite effect of calcium. So instead of like making your bones stronger, it pretty much just tears your bones apart. And you guys, it was freaky to read. I don't know how any of these women, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they lived to die. They all had a death sentence. Like, it was just an awful, painful death, and it was hard to read at times. Eventually, they discover that it is radium. Radium's poisoning them, and guess what? The radium company has known this for a very long time. They have their own doctors, they've done their own research, and they know that radium is poisonous, but they're not telling the girls. They keep all their test results from them. They hire doctors who know what's up, but they tell them to tell them not what's up. Like, so they'll be like, yeah, we know radium's kind of bad, but that would just cause madness. So we're going to tell everybody that radium's not poisonous, and it actually makes you healthy. One guy told one of the girls, is like, it's gonna make your cheeks all rosy. Like, yay! Get the fuck out. Anyways, finally this random doctor who is not connected to the Radium company, because apparently everyone in those days had some hand in the Radium deal, just tells everybody what's up. Like, hey, Radium is bad. It's what's killing all these girls. And finally these girls have an explanation to what's happening to them. And they start fighting it. They take these Radium companies to court. They start suing, because these girls are paying so much money for their medical bills. It is astonishing to me. Thousands and thousands of dollars, because they are in so much pain. And the doctors have no idea what they're doing. No idea. So they'll go and then they'll do something, and it's just, it doesn't do anything. So they have to keep going back. So when they sue these Radium companies, they're essentially asking for their medical expenses back. Radium companies are just complete assholes, and they are just in the position that radium is not poisonous and it's not doing anything to you. We think that you women are hysterical and crazy, and you know, somebody just needs to explain it to you idiot women, sad little silly small women, that this isn't poisonous. They essentially treat the women like they're dumb, like they're kids, and it's awful. At one point, my part where I wanted to literally punch somebody in the face was, there's these two women. One was, these women would get, so not everyone would get the jaw pain, but a lot of women would get like hip pain or just random pains in their bones, because the radium, it just depended on who you were. It went to different parts of your body. So this one woman who had it in her hips mainly, and one of her legs was actually starting to shrink, and she had this huge limp, like she could barely walk. And the other woman, she had all this pain in her arm, so eventually they just amputated her arm. So these two women go to the factory that they used to work with to confront their manager. And they go in there and they're like, hey, we know radium's poisonous. We know that this is what caused us to feel like this. Like, do something. And he looks at them and he's like, you guys are in perfectly good health. Dude, what the actual, like, you're looking at a woman with one arm, one lady who can barely walk, and you're telling them that they're in excellent health? What? It was mind-blowing how slimy and slick these people were. It was just crazy to me. Eventually, there's two separate groups of like 5 women, and the last group really finally gets justice for all the girls. And it's so rewarding to read that, but it's also just kind of like disappointing how long it took. I mean, the book starts, I think the first page, 1917. There's not justice really until the 1930s. It's just astonishing to me. But finally, I mean, like, these girls sacrificed a lot. They really wanted to, I mean, at one point, I think a lot of them weren't even doing it for the money. I mean, the money obviously they needed, but they really just wanted to, this Radium Corporation, these companies, just to admit they did something wrong and to like have practices put in place so it doesn't happen again. And they do say that like these workers, these dial painters, put a lot of like awareness to workplace situations and workplace regulations and working with chemicals. And they probably saved a lot of lives. I just want to say a big shout out to these women for, while they're suffering through these painful death sentences, essentially, that they still had the energy to fight these companies. So, you know, props to them. I don't know if I could do it. I think I just would want the end to come. Their illnesses are horrible to read. Even though some of it is very hard to read, I do think this was a really important, do you guys like looking at the back cover? It's pretty good. I do think this is a very important book to read. I think it's always good to read stories that aren't really talked about. I had no idea this was a thing. I didn't get taught this in history class. I think it's very important to hear stories, listen to them, learn from them, really, yeah, grow from them. I just really feel like, I mean, we can still learn from this today. Don't take what somebody's saying and just think, oh, they're just being over dramatic. Maybe really look into it before you pass judgment, because they could be in actual danger or actually sick or actually going through something, and then you just ignored them. And maybe pursuing that issue could possibly save other people from going through that issue. It's just, it's just mind-blowing how some people are just dicks. And the whole time, I read this a lot on my trip to Chicago, and I have a vlog about that trip, and I can put the link below. But a lot of the times I would just stop and I would talk to my boyfriend about this book and be like, I don't understand how some people are just so money driven that they would look at some woman who just look awful. They literally would describe these women that they look like living skeletons, and then just not give a care in the world about them. And, you know, like my boyfriend Chandler would just be like, yeah, like people will do anything for money. And it's just kind of sad. And it's a realization that I know we all know, but I think that we all like to think that in the end we'll do what's right and everyone else will do that, but that's not really the case. So it's just kind of sad. It was a sad book. There was justice and there's love and whatever. Also, this is a very true story. I think I mentioned that already, but this is nonfiction. This is true. I really liked it. It was okay, like I said, it was really sad and hard to read at times, but I think I was blown away. I really like nonfiction. If you really like nonfiction, I definitely recommend it. It also, I think, was a really great nonfiction book because it read like a fiction book. Like, you were like, oh my God. Like, I think Kate Moore did a great job in writing this book. She did a lot of research. There was a lot of women infected, and she talked about a lot of women. So it was a great piece of work, and I definitely recommend this book. Again, it's The Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Women by Kate Moore. If you guys have read this book or you guys decide to read it, let me know what your thoughts are. And I would also really like to know what other nonfiction book recommendations you have. I really am a big nonfiction fan. I haven't done a ton of books on here about nonfiction, but I do really like it. So let me know in the comments below what are some of your favorite nonfiction books. All right, that's all I have for today, and I will see you guys next week.